5 phrases from your children you should never ignore. Have you ever heard your own child say something that made your heart stop cold? If you're a parent in your 60s, 70s, or even 80s, you've probably experienced moments where words from your son or daughter hit deeper than you expected. Some things they say come from love, but others come from a place of disrespect, distance, or even hidden resentment. And those are the words you should never ignore. This message is for you if you've ever walked away from a conversation with your child feeling confused, hurt, or like something just wasn't right. Today, we're going to walk through 5 powerful phrases that, if you ever hear them from your children, you should take seriously, so seriously that walking away might be the wisest, strongest thing you can do. These aren't just careless remarks. They are signs of emotional boundaries being crossed, of roles being reversed in a way that leaves you feeling small, unappreciated, or dismissed. You've given so much of yourself as a parent. It's not too much to expect some basic human decency in return. Once you recognize these warning signs, you can stand up for yourself with quiet strength, knowing that your time, your energy, and your love are all things that deserve to be treated with care. Stay with me until the end because the final phrase may not be what you expect, and it could be the most dangerous one of all. Number 1, you owe me. There's a chilling heaviness behind the words, you owe me, when they come from your own child. On the surface, it might sound like a harmless comment, maybe even a joke. But when you've spent decades raising someone, giving them your time, your money, your energy, and your love, those 3 words cut deep. And they don't belong in a healthy parent-child relationship. You owe me flips everything upside down. It implies that your worth is now measured by how much more you can give. It disregards the years of diapers you changed, the school lunches you packed, the sleepless nights you endured. It ignores the sacrifices you made quietly, without ever asking for recognition. Instead, it puts you in the role of a debtor, as if all that parenting was just an advance payment on some future obligation. Now, some children say this out of frustration or in the heat of the moment. Maybe they're struggling financially or emotionally and they want someone to blame. But when this phrase shows up regularly, especially with guilt attached, it's not just frustration. It's manipulation. As parents, we naturally want to help our children. That's part of who we are. But there's a difference between offering help out of love and being guilt into giving because someone believes they're entitled to it. That's not generosity, that's coercion. If your son or daughter says, you owe me, ask yourself, what exactly do I owe? Do I owe my retirement savings? My home? My peace of mind? Or do I owe it to myself to be treated with respect? I remember speaking to a 78-year-old man named George. After downsizing his home to live more simply, his son asked why he hadn't given him part of the proceeds. You owe me, the son said. You wouldn't have had that house if it weren't for me. George was stunned. For years, he had helped his son, paid for college, helped with rent, even watched the grandchildren every week. But suddenly none of that mattered. What mattered to his son was what else he could extract. That kind of mindset doesn't appear overnight. It often builds slowly, when children grow up seeing their parents as endless providers. But once you hit your 70s or 80s, it's time for those roles to evolve. You're not an open wallet. You're not a support system to be drained. You are a human being with needs, limits, and dignity. If you ever hear the phrase, you owe me, pause and reflect. How often have you heard it before? Is it part of a pattern? Does it leave you feeling used or ashamed? Those are red flags. And sometimes the best response is to walk away, not with anger, not with spite, but with a calm, confident decision that your self-worth is not up for negotiation. You gave them life. You gave them everything you could. And love doesn't keep a ledger. Number 2, you wouldn't survive without me. Few phrases carry such a sting as this one. You wouldn't survive without me might not be shouted. It might be whispered under the breath during an argument, said offhandedly when you express a need or frustration, or even delivered with a half-smile that pretends to be light-hearted. But no matter the tone, the message is the same: you are weak. You are dependent. Your very existence depends on me. When this comes from your own child, it can shake you to your core. You spent most of your life being the strong one, keeping a roof over your family's head, making sure meals were on the table, comforting your children when things got hard. You were the foundation. So hearing your child suggest that you're nothing without them feels like being erased. Like all those decades of sacrifice and stability no longer count. It's a statement that rewrites your story, casting them as the hero now, and you as the helpless bystander. Let's be honest. Aging does change things. We all face moments where we need help, physical, emotional, or financial. But needing help does not mean you've lost your value. And it certainly doesn't mean someone else gets to use that fact as leverage to control or belittle you. This phrase often shows up in subtle power struggles. Perhaps you live with your adult child. Maybe they help manage your finances or assist with transportation. That kind of support can be generous and loving, when given with respect. But when that support is weaponized, used to make you feel powerless or small, that's no longer care. That's control. I once heard the story of Linda, a 74-year-old widow living with her daughter. At first, it was a mutually helpful arrangement. Linda helped with the grandkids, her daughter helped with appointments and bills. But over time, things shifted. Her daughter began speaking for her at the doctor's office without asking. She started managing Linda's mail, sometimes withholding letters. And eventually, during an argument about a cancelled social event, she snapped, "You wouldn't last a month on your own." Linda stood there stunned. All those years of being a reliable mother, the backbone of her family, suddenly reduced to a burden in the eyes of the very person she had raised. That dynamic can sneak up on you. It starts small, with minor decisions being made without your input. Over time, it becomes normal. And then one day you hear those 7 words, "You wouldn't survive without me." You are not a burden. You are not disposable. And you are not someone to be pitied or controlled. If someone is helping you, that help should come from love, not from superiority or dominance. And if your child forgets that, it's your right to remind them. Or if necessary, to remove yourself from the situation until respect is restored. Because surviving is one thing. But living with dignity? That's non-negotiable. Number 3, you're being dramatic. When your child looks at you and says, "You're being dramatic," it may seem like a small comment, something tossed out in the middle of a tense moment. But make no mistake, this phrase carries a dismissive power that cuts deeply, especially when aimed at an older adult trying to express honest feelings. At its core, "you're being dramatic" is emotional invalidation. It sends the message that your concerns, your emotions, your lived experience, none of it is worth taking seriously. It slams the door on real conversation. And over time, if you hear it often enough, it can convince you to keep your thoughts to yourself. Think about it. You've lived through decades of life. You've seen hardship, joy, grief, success, and disappointment. You endured long before your child was even born. So when you voice a concern, whether it's about your health, your financial security, or even a disagreement over family matters, it deserves attention, not an eye roll. This phrase often shows up when adult children feel uncomfortable with vulnerability. If you're scared about a medical diagnosis and you share that fear, hearing, "You're being dramatic," is their way of avoiding the weight of that reality. If you express disappointment about how you've been treated or left out, they might say it to dodge accountability. It's easier to label someone dramatic than to face uncomfortable truths. But here's the reality: your emotions are not too much. They are human. And at this stage of life, you've earned the right to express how you feel without being mocked, minimized, or silenced. I remember a man named Earl, 81 years old, who lived alone after losing his wife. One holiday season, he admitted to his daughter that the house felt unbearably quiet, that the holidays had been painful without her mother. His daughter sighed and said, "Dad, you're just being dramatic. It's not that bad." That moment stayed with him. He didn't argue. He simply went silent. The next time he felt lonely, he kept it to himself. And over time, that silence grew into emotional isolation, a sense that nobody wanted to hear what was going on inside. That's the hidden damage of a phrase like this. At first, it just stings. But slowly, it trains you to doubt your feelings, to wonder if your pain is even real, until you no longer feel safe expressing it. If your child regularly tells you you're being dramatic, especially when you're expressing pain, disappointment, or setting boundaries, recognize it for what it is, not a one-time slip, but a pattern of disrespect. And anyone, even your own child, who tries to shrink your voice with careless words needs to understand one thing: you are not here to be dismissed. You've lived too much, endured too much, and loved too deeply to be reduced to a punchline. Stand firm. Keep your voice. And remind yourself, the way you feel is not an overreaction. It is evidence that you are still alive, still aware, and still worthy of respect. Number 4, that's not how things work anymore. At first glance, this might sound like a simple statement. Maybe even factual. But when your child says, "That's not how things work anymore," and uses it to brush off your values, your experiences, or your way of doing things, the real message underneath is this: your knowledge, your perspective, and your wisdom no longer matter. That is a dangerous message. This phrase often appears in conversations where values clash. Maybe you're talking about saving money, about how children should be raised, about how people should treat elders, or the importance of responsibility. Instead of hearing your perspective with respect, you're told, "That's just not how things work anymore." End of discussion. But what this really does is push you into a corner. It paints you as outdated, irrelevant, or behind the times, when in reality, you're offering wisdom forged through decades of lived experience. Yes, the world has changed. Technology, culture, communication, it's all evolving at a rapid pace. But let's be clear, the values that sustain generations, honesty, patience, discipline, resilience, responsibility, those things never go out of style. Just because the world moves faster doesn't mean you're wrong to hold on to what has worked for centuries. When your child dismisses your thoughts with, "That's not how things work anymore," they aren't just disagreeing. They are silencing. They're signaling that their way is the only valid way, and that your input belongs to the past. I think of Carol, a 76-year-old grandmother. She once tried to gently offer advice to her son about raising his children, suggesting patience, consistency, and structure. She wasn't lecturing, just sharing her heart. His reply? "Mom, that's not how things work anymore." That single sentence left her crushed. She told me it felt like her decades as a mother and grandmother were suddenly irrelevant. And once you feel irrelevant, distance from your loved ones grows quickly. You don't have to agree on everything. But you do deserve to be heard. You deserve to have your values respected, even if others choose a different path. So the next time someone says, "That's not how things work anymore," pause and reflect. Are they using it to open a thoughtful conversation? Or are they using it to shut you down, to assert dominance, to silence your voice? If it's the latter, you may need to walk away. Not in bitterness, but with clarity. Clarity that your wisdom doesn't need permission to exist. It's valid, even if it's not fashionable. It's wise, even if it's not modern. And it's powerful, even if it doesn't fit into someone else's worldview. Sometimes, walking away is not surrender. It's choosing peace over a battle you didn't start. Because old-fashioned may not always be trendy, but often, old-fashioned is exactly what the world still needs. Number 5, why are you still living there? This one might seem harmless at first. Maybe your child asks casually over coffee, or during a holiday visit. But don't overlook the meaning hidden beneath the words. "Why are you still living there?" can sound like concern, but it can also carry judgment, pressure, and even an attempt to control your choices. For many older adults, a home is not just walls and a roof. It's where memories live. It's where you raised children, celebrated birthdays, mourned losses, and built a life. Every corner holds meaning. So when your child questions why you're still living there, in a way that makes you feel stubborn or foolish, it can feel like they're erasing all that meaning. Now, not all children ask from a selfish place. Some genuinely worry about safety, isolation, or upkeep. That's understandable. But when the question is asked with impatience, with pressure, or with hidden motives, it's often less about your well-being, and more about their convenience. Robert, a 79-year-old widower, told me how his son would constantly ask, "Dad, why are you still living in that old house?" At first, Robert brushed it off. But over time, the question turned into suggestions to sell, to move in with family, to transfer ownership. Eventually, it became clear, the son wasn't worried. He was angling. That's where the line between support and pressure gets blurred. Maybe your children think your home is too much hassle. Maybe they want to sell it for profit. Or maybe they simply don't want the responsibility later. But here's the truth. You do not owe anyone an explanation for where you choose to live, especially if that place brings you comfort and dignity. You are not a burden for wanting to remain in the home you love. You are not being unreasonable for preferring the familiar. And you are not obligated to uproot your life just because it would be easier for someone else. If their words make you feel ashamed, unsettled, or pushed into something you don't want, you have every right to say no. You have every right to walk away from the conversation until respect returns. You built your home. You filled it with memories. You decide when, or if, you leave it. Not because someone else pressures you to, but because you are ready, on your terms. That's independence. And no one has the right to take it from you. Final thoughts. Let's take a step back and reflect on the 5 phrases we've uncovered. You owe me. You wouldn't survive without me. You're being dramatic. That's not how things work anymore. Why are you still living there? Individually, they may seem small. But when they come from your own children, they carry the weight of 1,000 unspoken judgments. Each one has the power to chip away at your confidence, your autonomy, and your sense of worth. But here's the truth you must never forget. Your life experience matters. Your presence matters. Your boundaries matter. There is no shame in expecting respect and kindness, especially from your own children. Walking away doesn't mean abandoning love. It doesn't mean closing the door forever. What it means is refusing to tolerate words or behaviors that shrink you, silence you, or make you feel erased. It's a way of protecting your spirit, your dignity, and your peace. You've spent a lifetime building relationships, giving to others, being a steady force in your family. That legacy doesn't disappear because someone forgets it. It lives on in the strength you carry now, in the clarity of the choices you make going forward. So if any of these phrases sound familiar, don't ignore that knot in your stomach. Trust it. Use it to stand taller, to speak clearly, to protect your boundaries. You deserve to be heard, to be seen, to be valued, not only for who you were in the past, but for who you are right now. And if you felt alone in this, please know you are not. Many parents have faced the sting of words like these. That's why we're having this conversation, to shine a light on what often gets brushed aside, and to remind you, you are not imagining things. What you feel is real. And you have every right to honor that. Thank you for joining us today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment and share one thing you learned, or one boundary you're going to protect more fiercely moving forward. Your voice matters here. Your thoughts encourage us and others who may be walking the same road. If you found this message meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us continue creating content that informs, uplifts, and inspires. Until next time, stand firm, stay strong, and never forget, you are worthy of love, respect, and peace.